Yo ho ho, or yo ho hum. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin, I am a geek. You are watching Kevin the Geek, and today we continue with our reviews of new Doctor Who, specifically Series 6, and this one is Episode 3, or the second story of Series 6. If you missed my review of the two-parter opener to Series 6, make sure you go back and check that one out. I did that last week.
Yo ho ho! Or does nobody actually say that?
So this episode was Curse of the Black Spot, and arguably this is the time that Doctor Who decided to attempt to capitalise on Pirate-Mania, as it kind of was around this time, because we'd had three very successful Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and of course with people like Johnny Depp kind of making pirates seem kind of cool. Doctor Who clearly thought we need to jump on this bandwagon, so to speak, and they actually did it not long before the fourth movie came out, which was On Stranger Tides. I think it was about maybe a week, 2 weeks or so before that movie actually got released here in the UK. So they timed it pretty well, but did it have the impact that they were hoping for? In short, not really.
What in God's name possessed you, boy?
Now, I do suppose it does kind of depend on who you are as a viewer as to whether you actually kind of enjoyed this episode or not. I mean, I enjoyed it because I had enjoyed the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I like piratey things. I think they can be done well when there's a bit of moral ambiguity, but you've got to have good characters. And just having an episode where you stuff it with as many stereotypical pirate things as you can doesn't automatically make it a good pirate story.
I suppose laughing like that is in the job description. Can you do the laugh? Check. Grab yourself a parrot. Welcome aboard.
I mean, I think you had pretty much every possible cliche that there was when it came to pirates in this. You had them people walking the plank. You had a gunfight slash sword fight. You had people swinging on the ropes. You had mutinies. You had laughter from the crew. Treasure, stowaways. There was so much. I think literally the only thing they didn't really have was an actual sea battle. That's the only thing they didn't have. But they had storms and trying to do stuff in storms. There was a lot of it. Was it bad as an episode? No, it absolutely wasn't. Like I say, I enjoyed it.
I give the orders.
Worry because I'm wearing a hat now.
It was very silly. Really silly. But it was very light-hearted. And it wasn't trying to be anything groundbreaking. But I think what doesn't help as well is the placement of this episode compared to other episodes. And you of course have that situation where it's come after quite a deep and heavy two-parter of an opener to the series where the Doctor gets killed and there's this mega mystery rounded off by the end of the second of the two episodes where this little girl is seemingly regenerating. You don't know who she is, what she is or anything. And then we cut into a yo ho ho, let's have a silly little pirate adventure, yay. It doesn't help. But then, of course, on the opposite side of it, you've got the episode, which is, of course, what I'm going to review next week, which was the Doctor's Wife, which is a very highly regarded episode. I will give you my thoughts on that next week. So you're in this kind of awkward placement of an episode that you can't be like necessarily too over the top, too serious, and you've got to have the fluff piece, and that's exactly what it is. It's fluff, it's silly, it's cheesy, but it's enjoyable, and I think the story is reasonable in what it attempts to do, and I do think that Hugh Bonneville is better than what I think most people would say about it. Most people say he's trying to deliver a good performance, but he kind of gets held back by the material. I think the material is okay. What I do have a bit of a nitpick about, and like I said, when it comes to Pirates, I like when you have moral ambiguity.
I must admit, Jack, I thought I had you figured. It turns out you're a hard man to predict.
Me, I'm dishonest. And a dishonest man you can always trust to be dishonest. Honestly, it's the honest ones you want to watch out for.
Like when you have a pirate who, in their very nature, is theoretically supposed to be a bad person. They plunder, they thieve, they kill people. But then you can have that kind of flip side to them, and that is what Captain Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies was so good at being. That real moral ambiguous character that you just didn't know which way to go with him. You didn't know whether to trust him, to not trust him. He was a fantastic one. This one, Henry Avery, who is apparently a real-life pirate with a real-life mystery surrounding him as well, which I'll briefly touch on in a second. But Hugh Bonneville, he's playing this guy who is supposedly a bad guy because he's a pirate, and then he sort of comes across as trying to be all caring and everything about his child, which is kind of undermined when he basically decides to keep the treasure and not throw away that crown, which the Doctor berates him about. Yet within mere seconds, he's distraught over the fact that his kid is nearly dead, and in a split second has, without even seemingly having had a moral epiphany, suddenly goes, my kid is literally the most important thing. It's a bit wishy-washy for me, personally. I didn't quite buy the ending of him as a character. But, the rest of the stuff, and especially the stuff he did with Matt Smith, was absolutely brilliant. Their chemistry was really, really good. Now, I did mention that his character is a real-life character. And apparently, it does even indeed have a link back to classic Doctor Who. In fact, the first Doctor's era. So, Henry Avery was indeed a pirate in real life, which, to be honest, I only learned about today because I didn't really mention it in the Doctor Who Confidential. It literally just did it when I did a brief bit of background on the episode, just to kind of refresh my memory, kind of coming into this review. But he did, in fact, disappear, and it's theorized that he died somewhere between about 1699 and 1714, and no one knows what happened to him, whether he retired and changed his name, whether he was killed, whether he just went back to Britain. Nobody knows what actually happened to him. So this is another example of doing a historical episode with a bit of a real world link, but then putting a Doctor Who spin on it. And we've done that with Charles Dickens, we've done it with William Shakespeare, with Agatha Christie, we've done it with a fair few people in the time of Doctor Who, but this was one that I didn't actually realise. I don't think it's made enough of, but the link to classic Doctor Who is there was an episode, which is a missing episode, which was The Smugglers, and that was, I believe, from series 4 of Doctor Who. So it would have been one of the later ones with William Hartnell. And that is seemingly a sequel, in essence, to this story, because it happens afterwards, and it's apparently people trying to find the treasure of Henry Avery and the Fancy, which is the name of the ship in this episode. So it's an interesting one, that it has this link that realistically not many people are actually aware of. But I do think that this episode, despite me seemingly kind of berating it a little bit, like I said, it is silly, it is cheesy and fun. I think Matt Smith was great. I think Karen Gillan, she was slightly above average. You know, I mean, you take away the kind of sword fighting scene, she didn't really, the rest of the episode, do a whole lot else. Rory was just a bit of a drunk, bubbling idiot pretty much as soon as he got his hand cut, so he had the spot, and of course it was every time the siren came over. The one thing I will say is that the ending, I didn't buy it. I really didn't buy it, and I'm going to speak about it a little bit more so when we come to next week's review, because there's one aspect of this series so far that I'm already fed up with, and this is literally by episode 3. So I'll speak about it more next week. I'll go into it a little bit more in depth, but yeah, the ending, it was supposed to be this big, heartfelt, teary moment, but I didn't buy it. I really, really didn't. And I will say that I love the set and the ship and everything they did for it, both above and below deck. And I will say that the special effects deserve a special mention beyond just simply CGI, which of course, CGI with the siren played by Lily Cole, it's like probably the green screen that you have for my videos, where, you know, I don't have the most amazing software to be able to do it, and it's very clear that I'm in front of a green screen at times. And it was very much like this. Like, they had this kind of wispy, willowy effect around the edge, I think maybe to disguise it a little bit, but it was very plainly clear it was on a green screen. Oh, well, in actual fact, a blue screen in this particular incident, because she was a sort of greenish colour, so they had to paint her slightly green. So if they'd done it in front of green screen, they wouldn't have even got her, to be perfectly honest with you. But, you know, doing like the practical effects, things like the storm, you know, I think they're the kind of things that don't get mentioned enough. But with the set, you know, it was, I think, just really, really good. And it enables you to feel like you were actually there on a pirate ship. And it probably spends quite a bit of the budget as well. So I'm going to round up the review there. Now, if you are new to my videos and my Doctor Who reviews, what I do is I give every episode a score out of 100 by scoring 10 categories, a score out of 10. And I use that for when I do rankings and other things like that. So stick around just for a second and I'll give you the score and the grade. But please, if you are new as well, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and you turn on notifications. But these are my scores for The Curse of the Black Spot. And so there you have it. This episode has scored 70 marks out of 100, which makes it a B- episode. And yeah, like I said, it feels like I've been, you know, banging on about how cheesy and silly it is, but that is it. And it is something that I don't go back to all that often, but on occasion I will, because it is light-hearted enough that I don't have to think too much about it. I can just have fun watching this one. And not every episode of Doctor Who needs to be really dark and deep and serious like some of the episodes in this series are. Sometimes you can just have a fun adventure. And that's what we've got. But make sure you join me next week when I review The Doctor's Wife. For now, my name's Kevin. I am a geek, and you've been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.